Hey, what's going on guys, Chris here, and welcome to another Battlefield 1 weapon guide. Today we're going to be checking out a different Apocalypse DLC gun called the Howell Automatic. A pretty cool looking self-loading rifle from Britain that can be equipped on a medic loadout as a primary weapon. So the Howell Automatic rifle is basically a semi-automatic conversion of the Lee Enfield SMLE Mark III, and where the user would have had to manually cycle the bolt after every shot to chamber the next round, this was instead done by using a gas piston that ran along the right side of the barrel, along with a curved plate to move the bolt around. Despite essentially being a modified Lee Enfield, the Howell looks like some sort of weird looking steampunk type of contraption, down to the fact that it had quite a lot of bits and pieces added to it, with quite a few of those bits and pieces mainly being there to prevent the user from being slapped in the face or hand by that bolt pinging backwards, as the rifle's bolt mechanism was fully exposed, and the firer had nothing more than a face guard, handguard and shoddy looking pistol grip, which was essentially just a hollow metal rod to protect them from those moving parts. The gun sights have also been moved over to the left side of the gun's frame instead of being in the centre, keeping the user's face away from all those mechanical parts too, which also makes the rifle look even more unique at the same time. Because the Howell Automatic was a Lee Enfield conversion, this meant that it was chambered for the same 303 British round, and it would have mainly been used with extended box magazines, typically consisting of 20 bullets, which were designed for the SMLE but just weren't really issued to a lot of troops during World War I. Though it would have made sense for a semi-automatic rifle to use these 20 round mags, due to it being able to fire more bullets at a quicker rate. When the Howell rifle was first designed and born into the world in 1915, it wasn't exactly met with a brilliant reception from the British military, despite being something that could have potentially been a game changer, improving the fire rate of the Lee Enfield and turning it into a whole different kind of offensive weapon. Quite a lot of other nations were interested in the whole self-loading rifle concept, and many of them took on their own projects, using parts of existing weapons to create something new, or even invent their own ways of transforming their bolt-action rifles into semi-automatic weapons, such as the Americans developing the Pedersen device to be used on their M1903 rifles, allowing them to fire smaller bullets but at a much faster rate in semi-auto. The Howell rifle was surprisingly a fairly reliable and completely usable gun, despite looking like a mangled up mess of random metal parts, as each piece added to the gun was there for a purpose, to either protect the user from that cycling bolt, or to allow the gun to function in semi-automatic. And because the rifle was essentially just a pimped up SMLE, it would have been fairly cheap to produce or convert, with SMLEs already being available in the British military in large quantities. But as it turns out, the Brits just didn't really seem to be that bothered about self-loading rifles at the time, as they figured that the fully automatic Lewis gun, having a lot more firepower, was a much better alternative. And with LMGs increasing in numbers on the battlefield, there was less of a need for something like the Howell rifle, especially with the fact that the Lee Enfields are already doing a fine enough job in their unmodified state. So as a result, the Howell Automatic was made in very limited quantities, and didn't really see very much action during the Great War. But anyway, if you want to unlock the Howell Automatic and use it in Battlefield 1, you're first going to need the Apocalypse DLC, and then you'll have to go and complete a few specific requirements. The factory variants can simply be unlocked by getting yourself 50 kills whilst playing as a medic, which shouldn't really take very long to do. Though there's two assignments that you're going to need to work towards if you want to unlock that sniper variant. One of these assignments just requires you to get another 50 kills, but whilst using the Howell Automatic Factory variant, so you're first going to have to unlock that variant to complete this part of the task. And then you'll have to get 600 points of healing in a round 2, which can be done by just using those medical crates and pouches to keep your teammates topped up with health. You're probably best equipping both of these gadgets together and jumping into an operations game to get this one done, as those longer match times are going to give you more of a chance to get enough healing points within a round, and once you've completed both of these assignments, the Howell Automatic Sniper variant will be all yours. Now it's time to see where exactly the Howell Automatic sits within the game, and I can tell you that damage wise, the gun's going to hit pretty hard up close and out towards those medium distances, though it will get a lot weaker further away, as the rifle deals a maximum damage of 42 up to 46 meters, though it'll drop down from here to that minimum damage of 30 at the range of 59 meters and beyond. So the Howell Automatic shares its damage figures with the Farquhar Hill, which isn't exactly a huge surprise with them both firing the same cartridge. And although the rifle might be a tad stronger than a lot of other medic weapons up close, comfortably killing in 3 shots up to 54 meters, its lack of power beyond those medium distances gives the likes of the Selbstlader, Mondragon and General Liu rifle a slight advantage in longer range fights, with the Howell rifle's damage dropping below 34 over distance, meaning it'll take one more bullet to kill someone beyond 54 meters. Landing a headshot with the Howell rifle will reduce the number of bullets it takes to kill by 1, with headshots potentially dealing between 51 and 70 damage each depending on range, so I'd definitely advise aiming for those helmets whenever you can. Despite the Serigotti dealing a slightly lower amount of damage per shot, the Howell rifle actually has the same sort of kill distances, which is down to the Serigotti holding on to its maximum damage for an extra 4 meters, balancing the two guns out and making them very similar in the way they put players down. Apart from the fact that the Howell might be a tiny bit more reliable when it comes to killing already weakened opponents, due to the fact that it's got a slightly stronger damage output. Firing at the speed of 257 RPM is another pretty big factor which is shared with the Farquhar Hill, and it's not exactly a factor worth bragging about either, being slower than a lot of other medic weapons. Because the Howell and Farquhar Hill both deal the same damage and fire at the same rate, means that they both have almost identical kill times, with the Farquhar Hill being able to drop players in a fraction of a second quicker, due to its muzzle velocity being a little bit higher. With that said, neither of these guns have particularly quick kill times when compared to other medic weapons as a whole, which is mainly down to their fire rates being on the slower end of the spectrum, as they can be beaten fairly easily in a lot of close range fights, and that lower range damage is going to impact the gun's overall effectiveness at those further distances too, combining with that slower than average fire rate to increase those kill times even more. The Howell Automatic's 740 meters per second muzzle velocity isn't quite the fastest, but it's still quicker than a lot of other rifles, making the weapon a fairly easy one to use against targets running around at those close to medium ranges. It's basically the same velocity as the Scout's SMLE, which is no surprise with it practically being the same weapon. So although you might need to lead other players' movement slightly if they're far away, those bullets should still travel fast enough through the air to make the Howell rifle feel like a reliable option to use against targets within those early mid-ranges, where the gun is going to be more effective most of the time. Although the Howell Automatic might seem really similar to the Farquhar Hill so far, with the two guns having almost identical stats, recoil pattern and overall accuracy is a big part of what separates the two weapons and their variants, with there being a bit of a difference in the way they all work in comparison to each other. Both variants of the Howell Automatic have the same recoil pattern, with the gun kicking upwards with a vertical figure of 1 and horizontally with left and rightwards figures of 0.24, meaning that, on the face of it, the Howell rifle is going to jump up quite heavily, reducing that stability, but it's also going to be quite accurate at the same time, with those horizontal values being a bit lower than average. Compared to the Farquhar Hill Optical, both Howell Automatic variants are going to generally be more precise to use, though the Farquhar Hill Optical is going to have less ADS spread to compensate, and the Farquhar Hill Storm variant's got a better overall recoil pattern than both Howell variants, but the Howell variants instead have other, small adjustments to their base spread or recoil decrease values, which basically balances all of the weapons out and gives each variant a slight advantage over the others in different aspects. The Howell Automatic Factory's got a much higher recoil decrease than the sniper variant, allowing it to recover from recoil faster when you stop firing the gun, though the sniper variant's got a really low amount of aim down sight base spread when standing still, plus it's also got some mid-range optics to help improve aim over longer distances too. And one thing to point out about both Howell variants that gives them a pretty big advantage over the Farquhar Hill is the fact that they both happen to be equipped with a bipod, giving them a lot more precision when that bipod is being used, and massively boosting their performance in longer range gunfights. A bit of a game changer if you like to play from defensive positions when attacking the enemy team. Having an ammo capacity of 21 rounds is a pretty decent amount for a medic rifle to have, with the gun holding 20 cartridges per box magazine, along with an additional bullet in the chamber after performing a tactical reload, which is plenty to get the job done in most scenarios. It holds the same amount of ammo as the M1907 SL, so it's not quite as much as the Selbstlauder M1916, but not far off, and once again, this is yet another factor which is very similar to the Farquhar Hill, with that gun just holding 1 round less. This extra ammo allows you to spam your shots a bit more and fire at the weapon's maximum rate without worrying too much about a bullet or two straying off target, as you're normally going to have plenty more at your disposal to keep battling on. And accounting for a few missed shots, you'll usually have enough rounds to take down about 4 or 5 players with a full magazine, if need be. though I'd probably advise reloading with ammo still left over whenever you're in a safe place to do so, as tactical reloads are going to shave off a bit of time, taking 2.7 seconds to perform, a bit quicker than reloading when the rifle's running dry, which is going to take about an extra second at 3.8 seconds. Both of these reload times are exactly the same as the Fedorov automats, and in comparison to other medic rifles, including the ones that use stripper clips, these 3.8 second empty reloads are actually quite long to perform, especially with it being quicker to slot in full stripper clips with other guns, instead of loading individual bullets one by one. Which is where the Howell Automatic has a slight advantage, being able to perform tactical reloads at a slightly faster rate than a lot of the others. So in conclusion, the Howell Automatic functions in a very similar way to the Far Cry Hill, with the two rifles sharing quite a few of their main aspects with each other, both negative and positive. There are some differences between the weapons, mainly down to them having different muzzle velocities, reload times and accuracy stats, giving the Howell a bit of uniqueness, enough to be its own thing in the game rather than just being a complete clone. It's definitely more geared up for early mid-range gunfights, and although it's going to have your back most of the time with those pretty sizable magazines and swift tactical reloads, often making it a fairly reliable gun to bring along to the battle, it's not exactly the best killing machine, with it suffering from a lower damage drop at longer ranges, along with a pretty slow rate of fire, impacting the weapon's time to kill and making it a slightly less effective weapon for taking down other players quickly and effectively over all distances. The Howell Automatic's relatively low horizontal recoil allows it to be quite precise for landing bullets on target most of the time, making it a fairly accurate weapon to use in most fights. Though because the gun kicks upwards quite violently after every shot, you might need to fire at a steadier pace when taking on longer ranged enemies, just to allow those sights to reset back to their original position first, which essentially increases that time to kill even more. Though the Howell does have a little trick up its sleeve when you need to deal with other players far away. That bipod is perfect for boosting the rifle's accuracy over range, and this helps to increase its overall usability even further, potentially making it a more effective weapon to use over range than the Far Cry Hill. The Howell Automatic is a fairly well-rounded weapon that can take on multiple targets without too many issues. It's probably not the most competitive option to go for, and you might get caught out in a few gunfights if you're not quick enough to the trigger, or if you end up getting surrounded by the enemy team. Though it's still a pretty dependable rifle that can really go well with a passive playstyle, and if you're a big fan of the Far Cry Hill, then you're probably going to like the Howell Automatic rifle quite a lot. But that's all I've got for you this time, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the guide, then let me know it by hitting that like button, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more Battlefield 1 videos just like this one. Take it easy, and I'll see you in our next episode.